So, coming off the absolute explosion of WrestleMania, where it feels like anything and everything can happen, the wrestling world then turns its attention to Backlash.
Right. It's that follow-up PPV. Always interesting.
Exactly. And this year, St. Louis was the host, May 10th, 2025. The Enterprise Center was packed. I mean, 17,155 fired up fans.
That's a great crowd.
It really is. And it's always fascinating to see how storylines shift and, develop after that massive WrestleMania event. Backlash definitely delivered some surprises.
Oh, for sure.
We've got a collection of reports and notes here that really help us dig into the key moments, what went down, and maybe what it all means moving forward.
Absolutely. If WrestleMania is like the season finale and the big reset button, Backlash is often, the first step into the next act.
Good way to put it.
And this year felt particularly significant, didn't it? Definitely a strong lineup.
Yeah.
So let's get straight into the main event, billed as One Last Time.
John Cena versus Randy Orton, undisputed WWE Championship.
Can you even believe this was their 94th match against each other? That history is just immense.
It really is. And the lead-up, well, it was built pretty effectively, I thought.
You had Cena winning the title at Mania 41.
And then on Raw, almost immediately, boom, RKO from Orton. Classic.
But what made it interesting this time was Cena's character shift, right? Yeah. The heel turn at Elimination Chamber.
Yeah, and Orton trying to, reason with him. It wasn't just standard good guy versus bad guy. More complex.
Totally.
Right?
And then you layer on the fact it's in St. Louis, Orton's hometown.
That adds so much weight, the hometown hero narrative.
Speaking of Orton, that pre-show interview comment was fascinating about OVW.
Oh, yeah, Ohio Valley Wrestling, back in the day.
He said Cena, even when they were all hanging out, never once invited anyone back to his apartment. 0 times.
And Orton himself kind of framed that as maybe an early indicator of Cena's personality, that intense focus maybe.
Right.
Or just being more private.
It does paint a different picture, doesn't it? Adds a little texture.
For sure. Those little details enrich the whole thing.
And Orton was also very clear about his plans. Win the title, then a retirement tour.
But not a short one. He mentioned, 5 to 10 years? At age 45?
Which, in wrestling years, 45 isn't necessarily the end, but a decade-long retirement tour as champ.
That's the big question, isn't it? If he wins and holds it that long,
yeah,
what does that mean for everyone else, the younger talent?
Does it stall things? Limit opportunities for the next wave?
It's definitely something to think about, a major strategic point beyond just this one match.
Okay, let's shift gears. The WWE Women's Intercontinental Championship. Lyra Valkyria versus Becky Lynch.
Now, this had a really interesting build. Alliance, betrayal, the works.
It all kicked off at WrestleMania 41, didn't it? Bayley gets attacked.
And Lynch comes out as Valkyria's surprise partner,
Uh-huh.
and they win the tag titles.
Felt like a real moment,
But wrestling moments like that, they can turn fast.
And they did. The Raw rematch, Valkyria takes the pin.
And then Lynch just snaps, attacks Valkyria, turns heel.
Which was a genuine shocker for Lynch, right? Been a top good guy for so long.
Huge character shift. And her reasoning was pretty cold.
Said she attacked Bayley, then went after Valkyria because of their friendship.
Super personal, almost vindictive.
So Valkyria throws down the challenge for the title at Backlash. Lynch accepts. Boom.
It really shakes up that whole division. You had Bayley and Valkyria close. Now Lynch is in there attacking that bond.
How does that three-way dynamic play out now, regardless of the Backlash result?
Definitely one to watch. Alliances, betrayals. It's all in flux.
Okay, let's talk Gunther versus Pat McAfee. Very personal, this one.
Yeah, stemmed from that post-WrestleMania argument, right? Gunther took issue with the commentary.
Apparently, yeah. Didn't like what Cole and McAfee said, so he went after Cole. Physically.
And McAfee, being McAfee, loyal to Cole, stepped in.
Didn't end well for him initially. Gunther choked him out.
Which led to the suspension from Raw GM Adam Pearce.
But McAfee wasn't having it. He wanted the fight.
He actually went to the SmackDown GM, Nick Aldis, tried to get the suspension lifted.
Wants to settle it in the ring.
Aldis didn't lift the Raw suspension, but he saw the potential there. The animosity was real.
So he booked the match for Backlash anyway. Gunther versus McAfee.
Perfect example of heat bleeding into a storyline and creating a compelling matchup.
Absolutely. Okay, moving to the U.S. title. Fatal 4-way. Jacob Fatu defending.
Against LA Knight, Damian Priest, and Drew McIntyre.
Yeah, this one took a few turns to get there.
It started with the Mania fallout. Fatu wins the title. McIntyre wins that Sin City street fight.
Then on SmackDown, Knight wants his rematch. McIntyre wants a title shot. Ambitions colliding.
And their #1 contender match gets wrecked by Priest and Solo Sikoa. DQ finish.
Then Knight versus Priest also gets interrupted by Sikoa. No contest, just chaos.
Felt like everyone was circling Fatu in that title.
So Aldis initially makes it a triple threat.
But then Sikoa makes the case for McIntyre based on that earlier DQ win.
And Aldis agrees. Adds McIntyre. Makes it a fatal four-way.
Really showed the Bloodline's influence, didn't it? And just the constant jockeying for position.
Kept you guessing, for sure.
Yeah.
All right, finally, the Intercontinental title. Dominik Mysterio defending against Penta.
Another one with roots in WrestleMania and some faction interference.
Dom won the title at Mania 41 in that four-way, pinning his own stablemate, Finn Balor.
Which always adds an interesting wrinkle within the group, yeah.
Then he defends against Penta on Raw, but JD McDonough gets involved.
Helps Dom keep the title. Naturally, Penta wasn't happy.
So Pekka interferes in a Judgment Day tag match later on, tit for tat.
And then Penta actually beats McDonough, even with Balor and Carlito trying to interfere.
That win really sealed his shot at Backlash, right? Overcame the odds.
Definitely. It shows how these mid-card title scenes are often interconnected. Lots of moving parts, factions involved.
Makes it richer than just a one-on-one thing.
Exactly. Creates a more engaging story.
Okay, let's peek behind the curtain a bit. The atmosphere, the details around the show. So let's talk about the atmosphere first. In the Enterprise Center.
Yeah, let's.
That sold-out crowd, over 17,000, that's impressive right there.
Huh.
But what's kind of fascinating is this little anecdote floating around.
Oh.
About some WWE talent joking, behind the scenes.
Yeah.
About how the backstage area felt almost spacious compared to WrestleMania weekend.
I
think with all the matches, all the talent,
it
really puts into perspective the sheer scale of WrestleMania, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. It's that kind of insider detail that really paints a picture.
Totally agree.
There were some interesting little details coming out from behind the scenes, right?
Yeah, a few tidbits. Like apparently there were quite a few changes to the planned match card during the weekend leading up to Backlash.
Oh, really?
Seems like things were shifting around. Except for the main event, Cena versus Orton was always the plan.
Okay. Well, that's pretty typical in wrestling, isn't it? Things change on the fly.
Oh, absolutely. Injury creative changes.
Yeah.
It speaks to the adaptability needed from everyone involved.
We also heard about some independent wrestlers getting a chance to work as extras.
Yeah. Portraying medics, some security.
Yeah. One guy, Austin Mulatello, even took an RKO.
That's awesome. Great exposure.
Huh. What a story for them, taking an RKO from Orton.
Right. Always cool to see those opportunities for up-and-coming talent on the bigger stage. Names like Nixie XS, Mike Outlaw, Moses the Deliverer, Skylar Sparks, mentioned as being there.
That's fantastic. Okay, let's kick things off right at the absolute beginning. A very familiar tradition, especially at big American events. The national anthem.
The Star-Spangled Banner. Yep.
Rashard Owens performed it. And the recording, it really highlights those familiar lines. Oh, say can you see, all the way through to Semlin Hall of the Free and the home of the brave. Kicking off with this, I mean, what's the thinking there? It's standard, but why?
Well, it's fascinating, isn't it?
Yeah.
It immediately creates this shared identity, a collective moment.
Right. Everyone stands, listens.
Exactly. It taps into that cultural, that patriotic feeling. Before a single move happens in the ring, you get this unifying ritual. It kind of primes the pump emotionally, doesn't it? Sets a tone of, like, significance, grandeur even. Heightens that feeling that you're part of something big.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then, straight after that, the focus shifts. Location, St. Louis.
The gateway to the West?
They mention that, and it's wrestling history, which is pretty deep, actually.
Oh, yeah. St. Louis has roots.
And they point out it's home to the Cardinals, the Blues, who play in the same building, the Enterprise Center, sold out for Backlash.
So, connecting it to the city's wider sports scene.
How does that, highlighting the city itself, how does that add to the event?
Well, I think emphasizing that local context, it's a really smart way to boost the sense of occasion. By name-dropping the city's history, its other teams, you tap into local pride. It makes the folks there feel even more connected, right? It's their city hosting this major thing.
And we get visuals, too. Aerial shots.
Yeah, shots of the gateway arch, the outside of the arena. Those establishing shots, they ground the event visually. For everyone watching at home, it reinforces the scale. This isn't just anywhere, it's St. Louis.
Okay, so we've got the tradition, the location. Then the preview starts building the actual reason people are there, the match.
Trick cards, yeah. Laying out what's coming up.
And they run down the list. So looking at how they present these matches right at the top, what jumps out?
Well, it's how each one is framed, isn't it? They're not just matches. They're stories with stakes.
Right.
You get specific hooks, the revenge angle for Valkyria Lynch, Gunther's whole dangerous persona. It gives you an immediate reason to care about each specific contest.
So the actual broadcast we're sort of analyzing here, it started near the end of the kickoff show, right, with the anthem. And during that preview section, there was mention of B-roll footage. Showed guys like McAfee, Gunther, Valkyria, Lynch, Orton arriving. What's the point of showing them just walking in?
Good question. Showing the arrivals does a couple of things. One, it kind of humanizes these big stars. You see them before they're on stage, a little peek behind the curtain.
Right, it makes them seem more real.
And second, it builds anticipation for their specific matches later. Seeing Gunther arrive looking intense or McAfee looking pumped, it just adds to the buzz for when they actually compete. Makes you feel like things are really happening now.
Like the event is building in real time.
Exactly. And how they shoot it, maybe a close-up on someone's face or a wide shot of them entering the building that can really dial up the mood they want to create.
Gotcha. And after that, there was a video package looking back at WrestleMania 41 and stuff leading up to Backlash. And it wasn't just the announcers' descriptions, right? There were audio snippets.
Yeah, little hints of the rivalries, things like you don't mean anything to me or I'm going to maul you. Those little sound bites, they just add another layer, makes the fights feel personal, more intense, more captivating than just titles. Yet the recap package, pretty standard, but really important.
Why important?
Well, think about it. Not everyone watching Backlash followed every single week of TV leading up to it, right? So this package, it's like a crash course. It hits the highlights, reminds you of the key rivalries, the big moments from Mania, the reasons these matches tonight matter. It gets everyone, casual fan or hardcore, invested in the stories.
Brings everyone up to speed so the matches have maximum impact.
Precisely. Context is everything.
And then, boom, the shift to the live show proper, pyro goes off, the theme song Detonator by Killer Mike starts blasting, and Michael Cole welcomes everyone, announces the sellout crowd, 17,155 people.
Yeah, that's the signal, isn't it? The energy injection.
It definitely sounds like it.
That combo, the explosions, the loud driving music, the announcer's hype, mentioning the packed house, it's all designed to be this immediate sensory hit.
Grabs your attention.
Totally. It says, okay, the prelude is over. Yeah. It hooks you visually, auditorily, and just pumps up that big fight feel. Reinforces that this is important, this is exciting.
So if we kind of zoom out and look at that whole sequence, anthem, St. Louis connection, match rundown and stories, arrivals, recap, then the big live kickoff. It feels very deliberate.
Oh, absolutely. It's meticulously crafted. You see that flow, right?
Yeah.
Start with tradition and unity.
The anthem.
Ground it in a specific place with local pride.
St. Louis.
Introduce the characters and conflicts.
The match card and rivalries.
If build anticipation with behind-the-scenes glimpses and story context.
Arrivals and recap.
And then hit them with that explosive start to the main show.
Yeah. Each step seems designed to pull you in further.
Exactly. Even those first maybe 10, 15 minutes. They're packed with techniques to engage you, whether you're in the arena or watching at home, laying all the groundwork for the drama to come, using tradition, location, narrative, pure sensory input. It's all there.
It really makes you appreciate how many different things are working together. The music choice, the camera shots, the specific words the announcers use, those little hints of storylines.
Yeah, all contributing to that feeling of, this matters, this is exciting.
It definitely leaves you thinking, doesn't it? About how narratives get built, how audiences get hooked, not just in wrestling, but like in movies, TV shows, maybe even marketing. How do you create that buzz right from the start?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How do you capture attention and build investment?
Okay, let's unpack this chaotic scene. We're diving into the United States Championship Fatal 4-Way match from Backlash 2025.
Jacob Fatu, LA Knight, Damian Priest, Drew McIntyre. It just, it spun off into so many different directions, unexpected stuff.
Absolutely. It started as this predictable clash, well, as predictable as a Fatal 4-Way gets, but it ended up being this, like, launching pad for whole new stories.
We've got info coming from, all over ringside commentary, backstage whispers, expert takes.
Exactly.
So setting the scene first, the entrances, they took their time, didn't they?
Oh, yeah. Really milked it. Built that big fight feel.
And the crowd was loud. You had Cole and Barrett on commentary. No Pat McAfee, obviously. He had his own match later.
Right.
What's fascinating right from the get-go is just how many individual stories are colliding in this one match.
Totally.
You have 4 distinct competitors, and each one has a really personal stake in walking away with that United States title.
Absolutely. Let's start with LA Knight. The energy from the crowd for this guy was Wow. Undeniable. You could practically feel it.
The momentum he had coming into this was pretty significant. He'd racked up a lot of wins recently, and he had that fan investment.
Yeah, he did.
That yeah chant, it just explodes every single time.
You can't deny it. It's like part of the show now, his signature sound.
Totally.
Then you had Drew McIntyre. Talk about a competitor with something to prove. He won a #1 contender match, which usually means a straight path to the title, right? So being thrown into this fatal four-way. Oh, it clearly didn't sit well with him.
Not at all.
Plus, it was mentioned he hasn't held a title since WrestleMania 40, which is like a long time for a former world champion.
Yeah.
And winning the U.S. title would also make him a Grand Slam champion.
And for those maybe less familiar, that's a big deal.
Yeah.
A significant milestone. It typically means holding the world championship, a major secondary title like the U.S. or IC title, tag belts, and maybe a lower tier singles title too.
Right.
So looking at the bigger picture, McIntyre's frustration is pretty understandable. He felt he'd earned that one-on-one shot.
Yeah.
And the stipulation, well, okay, technically it offers an easier path since he didn't need to pin Fatu. It probably felt like an obstacle he shouldn't have had to face.
Right. And we can't forget Damian Priest, a former U.S. champ, so he knows what it takes.
Knows the landscape.
Exactly. But the commentary also reminded us of his recent tough loss to McIntyre at WrestleMania 41. That brutal Sin City street fight.
Oof. Yeah.
You could tell there was still some serious heat there, and he definitely had a point to prove. They even mentioned his big match at Backlash in Puerto Rico a couple of years back, so he's got history with this event too.
And that brings up an interesting point about Priest's strategy, doesn't it? Was his main goal reclaiming the U.S. title, or was there also this strong undercurrent of settling the score with McIntyre kind of influencing his actions?
Good question. And finally, the reigning champion, Jacob Fatu. Jacob Fatu still getting this massive support, which is pretty interesting given his whole deal.
It really is. He connects.
This guy was presented as just an absolute powerhouse, undefeated since arriving in WWE, a dominant streak.
Tour de force.
And here's where things got really interesting. Strategically, it was constantly emphasized that he didn't have to be the one pinned or submitted to lose the title.
Right.
Anyone scoring a fall on any of the 4 competitors would become the new champion.
And that unique stipulation, it just fundamentally changes the whole match dynamic. It puts a different kind of target on Fatu's back.
Okay, so the bell rings, and immediately the broadcast team is like, avoid Fatu if you can. Focus on getting a pin on Knight, McIntyre, or Priest.
Obvious strategy. And it wasn't just a free-for-all immediately.
No, it split off kind of naturally into those existing rivalries, didn't it?
Yeah, Fatu went right after Knight, and then you had McIntyre and Priest picking up where they left off. It showed how all these grudges were tangled up in the match itself. Everyone had someone they wanted to take out first.
And we saw some big moves early. Knight hit that leaping neckbreaker, the DDT, and right out of the gate, LA Knight just explodes. He was all over Fatu and Priest, even getting some very, very close near falls. The commentary was really impressed with that initial burst, but also, wondering if he could keep up that incredibly high pace.
What really stood out in those opening moments was how decisively Knight just established himself as a major threat. He came out with a clear plan and, executed it almost perfectly.
Almost.
But yeah, like the commentary said, sustaining that intensity for the whole match, that's a huge ask.
Then we saw those classic temporary alliances start to form, the kind you often see in these fatal four-ways.
Always happens.
For a brief moment, Knight and Priest seemed to have a common goal: target Jacob Fatu. But as the broadcast team noted, these partnerships are always fragile, self-serving. Trust is pretty rare in a match like this.
It's a compelling part of these multi-person matches, though.
Yeah.
Necessity creates these, fleeting collaborations, but ultimately, every single person is looking out for number one, their own chance to win.
Absolutely. And McIntyre definitely had moments where his raw power just took over. The commentary highlighted some absolutely brutal neck breakers he hit on Fatu.
Vicious.
But like you said, fatal four-way rules. Things change fast. You think you're in control, then bam, someone fresh comes flying in.
And we saw those moments, right, where you thought, okay, this is it. Almost landed that Claymore early on.
You could really feel the impact of those moves just through the announcers' reactions. I mean, this was 4 incredibly physical guys going at it.
McIntyre's intensity was undeniable. He brought his signature hard-hitting style, really showcasing his strength and athleticism. That Claymore attempt, even though it missed, sent a clear message, I am here to dominate.
Priest wasn't just taking it, though. He showed off some surprising agility for a guy his size. Hit a really impressive Hurricane Rana on Fatu.
Yeah. Didn't see that coming.
And then a sharp flatliner on Knight. The broadcast team seemed genuinely impressed by his versatility and, willingness to take risks.
Priest is fascinating because he blends that powerful physical style with those unexpected bursts of high-risk stuff. It keeps opponents off balance, adds another layer of unpredictability.
Now here's where years of bad blood really bubbled up.
Yeah.
McIntyre and Priest locked horns, and the commentary made sure we remembered Priest had cost McIntyre the world title before.
Oh yeah, they weren't letting us forget that.
This wasn't just about the U.S. Championship for these two. There was deep personal history fueling it.
That history between them just added significant emotional weight to their exchanges. It wasn't only about the title. There was this palpable sense of unresolved conflict in every strike, every near fall.
And Fatu just tossing Priest around outside with that Samoan drop. Pure power.
The momentum just kept swinging back and forth.
Yeah.
Constant near falls.
Kept you guessing. Really well done, actually. Made you believe anyone could take it at several points. Amplified the drama, for sure. And then we got this incredible Raw clash between McIntyre and Fatu. The commentary called it two alpha males just unloading.
Just throwing bombs.
They even mentioned McIntyre's. Well, let's just say colorful trash talk, suggesting Fatu might get dog-walked. And Fatu responded with some seriously powerful offense. Showed why he was the champ.
That segment really highlighted the raw power and intensity both men bring. McIntyre's aggressive talk and Fatu's explosive moves. It made for a really compelling physical confrontation.
But in the middle of that intense back and forth, there was this subtle but crucial turning point the commentary picked up on.
What was that?
McIntyre, caught up in the heat of the moment, inadvertently created an opening for LA Knight. It's often those small, unintended things that can completely shift the momentum, right?
Absolutely. In a fatal four-way, you're not just battling your direct opponents, you're dealing with the ripple effects of everyone else's actions, including your own mistakes.
And then the whole thing just, it exploded into utter chaos. The fight between McIntyre and Priest spilled outside the ring, escalating into this wild brawl.
Way into the back.
Took them all the way into the backstage production area. We heard the shock in the commentators' voices as Priest delivered this absolutely brutal south of heaven chokeslam to McIntyre through a set of tables.
Oh man, that sound.
EC-dub, EC-dub, EC-dub. The audio really conveyed the sickening impact.
The broadcast team's reaction really emphasized how severe that spot was. Taking a move like that, off the elevated production area, crashing through tables, incredibly dangerous. Created a huge, memorable moment. McIntyre just wiped out.
Looked nasty. Reports say McIntyre was, banged up, but ultimately okay. Priest might have actually chipped a tooth or something in the chaos.
Just absolutely brutal stuff. And think about what that did.
Strategically. Yeah, it took both of them out of the equation, at least for a bit.
Exactly. Suddenly it's just LA Knight and Fatu left standing, relatively speaking.
And Knight sees his chance, puts Fatu on the announce table.
Looked like he was going to do the Shane McMahon elbow drop.
Right.
From the top rope to the table.
Totally channeling Shane O'Mac. Climbs up, ready to go.
And then, bam! Solo Sikoa, out of nowhere.
Pulls Fatu off the table, saves him.
Knight must have been absolutely furious. You could see it.
Well, yeah. And that's a huge moment. Solo injecting himself, the bloodline narrative crashing right into the U.S. title scene.
Raises questions, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Like, did Fatu know? Was this planned?
Didn't look like it. Fatu seemed almost surprised Solo was even there.
He really did. And while Knight's distracted, yelling at Solo, chaos erupts again.
This was the big shocker. Guy hops the barricade, attacks Knight.
Just blindsides him. And it's Jeff Cobb.
Jeff Cobb. Cole on commentary lost it a bit, calling him like one of the biggest free agents on the planet.
Huge surprise. And we're hearing he apparently had to take like multiple flights from Japan just to make it there in time. Crazy travel.
Makes the moment even bigger. And Fatu's face during all this.
Yeah, he looked completely bewildered. Like, who is this guy? What's happening? Zero indication he expected Cobb.
Which tells you a lot, doesn't it? Suggests this wasn't Fatu's plan? Maybe Solo's operating on his own here.
Seems that way. So Fatu, almost like he's hesitant.
Yeah, a bit reluctant, maybe.
Gets back in the ring, hits that running hip attack in the corner, goes up, double jump moonsault on a Knight.
And that's it. 1, 2, 3, Fatu retains.
But the aftermath, that was almost as telling as the match.
Absolutely. Fatu gets the belt, but then he just walks right past Sikoa and Cobb. No eye contact, no nod, no nothing. Just walks straight to the back, alone.
No celebration with them, no acknowledgement at all.
Speaks volumes, right? That tension between him and Solo, it's clearly still there, maybe even worse now. Fatu doesn't seem happy about how he won or who helped him.
So is Cobb the new soldier Solo was talking about on SmackDown?
It fits, doesn't it? The timing, the way it happened. Plus, you hear whispers about injuries in the bloodline ranks. Maybe Cobb's there to, fill a gap, bolster the numbers.
Could be Solo building his own version of the bloodline, maybe. A bigger group.
That seems like a very real possibility now. Which leaves us with, well, a lot of questions.
The big one being, if Cobb is Solo's guy, what happens with Fatu? Where does he fit in this? Is he really in charge of his own title reign?
Or is he caught in Solo's game now? Does he even want to be? The power dynamics feel like they're shifting dramatically.
And you still got the fallout from the rest of the match. McIntyre and Priest clearly aren't finished.
Not by a long shot. Commentary was already buzzing about future matches there, and Fatu's got this whole new Cobb-Sikoa dynamic to deal with while defending his title.
Exactly.
Okay, so what about the critical take? How did the sources say the match itself was received?
Dave Meltzer's review seemed pretty positive. He gave it 4 1/4 stars, called it excellent.
My, solid rating.
Yeah. He noted Fatu was the clear crowd favorite going in, but that the crowd was super into the whole match. Even did the sarcastic "we want tables" chant, despite the action being good.
Ha, classic. Did his review mention anything else specific?
It did reiterate that Fatu versus McIntyre face-off got the best reaction, and confirmed McIntyre was hurt from the table spot. But like Triple H said, not seriously. No time off expected.
Gotcha. We then had a quick break for some ads, WWE Shop, and of course, those always entertaining Old Spice commercials with Jey Uso and R-Truth.
Got to pay the bills. Natural part of the broadcast. Give a little pause, highlights the partners. Standard stuff.
And then came the promotion for WWE's next big event, Night of Champions, heading to Saudi Arabia on June 28th.
Big international show.
Yeah, they even mentioned the first ever SmackDown taking place in Riyadh the night before, so WWE is definitely continuing that global expansion.
Yeah, it signals their ongoing commitment to international markets. Builds anticipation for the next major event on the calendar.
Finally, Michael Cole really hyped up the main event of the evening, a true clash of titans. John Cena versus Randy Orton for the undisputed WWE Championship.
Legendary matchup.
He emphasized their incredible, storied history, 93 matches between them, 23 one-on-one. That's a rivalry that basically defined a generation of wrestling fans.
That main event promised a fitting end to the night, didn't it? A battle between two legends with such a deep history, a real contrast to the unpredictable chaos of the Fatal 4-Way.
You know what really gets the blood pumping? A rivalry that just feels, well, more than sport.
Oh, absolutely.
We're diving into one just like that today. Backlash 2025. Lyra Valkyria, the champ, against Becky Lynch.
The man.
Yep, we've sifted through, quite a bit of coverage, different takes on it, to really get a feel for this one.
Yeah.
And this wasn't just, about a belt. It felt like the boiling point of something really personal.
Exactly. I mean, sure, the Women's Intercontinental Championship was on the line. Big deal in itself.
Right.
But the real heat, the animosity, that came from, well, a broken alliance, a trail.
Yeah.
That kind of thing always makes it bigger than just a match. It hits different.
It really does. So let's peel that back a bit, because this whole feud, it didn't just pop up overnight. Lyra Valkyria and Becky Lynch, they were actually, partners.
A strong team.
A really strong team. They were standing tall at WrestleMania 41, holding the women's tag team titles together. I mean, talk about unity, right?
It really was.
Yeah.
And winning at Mania like that,
yeah,
it sort of cemented how strong that bond seemed.
Yeah.
Which, honestly, is exactly why what happened the very next night on Raw was such a gut punch. Losing the tag titles was bad enough, but then Becky just unleashing on Lyra.
Whoa.
Yeah. Calculated. It completely flipped their whole dynamic. A seismic shift, truly.
And it wasn't just random chaos either. Becky actually admitted, didn't she, that her original target was Bayley, Lyra's intended Mania partner.
That's right. Her reasoning was pretty stark.
Classic wrestling logic, almost.
Kind of. The friend of my enemy is my enemy. A direct line back to Becky's, very long and complicated history with Bayley.
So for Lyra, suddenly it's not just about her, it's personal. She's fighting for herself, sure, but also kind of defending an ally. The stakes just shot way up.
Emotionally, yeah. Hugely.
And then Lyra made that comment?
Oh, yeah, the promo. Saying she's actually a better wrestler than Becky. That takes guts.
It really does, especially, like you said, against Becky Lynch. And the commentary team, they did a great job setting that stage, using those recap packages to weave it all together.
Oh, those packages are vital, aren't they? They give you that context, that emotional hook. Reminds everyone watching of the history, the why behind the fight.
Right.
It's, good storytelling. Sets the mood perfectly before they even lock up.
Exactly right. So, okay. The emotional stakes are clear. Now, let's talk entrances, because even they told a story. Becky Lynch comes out first.
Yep.
And the graphic they showed, pretty interesting stuff. Her first one-on-one match in like almost a year, right? Since May 2024.
Yeah, quite a gap for a singles competition for someone like her.
Her third Backlash appearance. But here's the kicker, I thought. A 0-1 record against Lyra Valkyria. Remember that NXT Halloween Havoc match in 2023?
Oh, yeah, I remember. That immediately puts a question mark there, doesn't it?
Totally. Can Becky finally get that win back? Can she even spur the score?
Yeah.
Adds instant intrigue.
It does. That graphic, it's smart. It highlights her time away from singles matches, maybe suggesting she needs to prove something again.
Right.
And that loss to Lyra. It makes Becky seem, well, maybe a little vulnerable in this specific matchup. A hurdle to overcome.
And then out comes Lyra Valkyria, the champion, and her graphic, totally different vibe, pure dominance.
Yeah, projected confidence.
118 days as women's intercontinental champion. This was her 5th title defense. And listen to this, a 7-1 singles record in 2025.
Wow. Impressive.
Very impressive. It just painted her as this really formidable, successful champion on a roll.
And the contrast between those two graphics was, well, perfect storytelling right there.
Yeah.
You've got Becky, the established big name, maybe looking for a bit of redemption, against Lyra, the champion who's just been winning and winning.
Experience versus momentum.
Exactly. Classic wrestling dynamic. Sets the stage beautifully.
And you saw that play out right from the bell. Valkyria came out very technical, lots of holds, trying to control Becky on the mat.
Like that swinging pendulum lock. And the surfboard stretch.
Exactly. It really felt like she was trying to prove her point, back up that claim of being the better wrestler.
Made sense. But you can't sleep on Becky Lynch's experience. She knows how to shift gears.
Oh, definitely. She weathered that initial storm and then, boom, took control, took the fight outside the ring.
And started jawing at Lyra's fiancé at ringside.
LJ Cleary showed him on camera.
Right, LJ Cleary. Very talented wrestler himself, active on the international indies.
Yeah, good stats, apparently. It just kind of grounds Lyra a bit, shows her world outside the ring, makes her fight feel even more real.
It humanizes her, definitely. Reminds the audience there are real people, real relationships involved beyond just the title. Helps you invest in her more, understand what this means to her personally.
Some reports even mention Becky referencing him in a promo before the match, kind of hinting she played a part in them getting together. Adds another layer, doesn't it?
Sure. It definitely raises the temperature. But, okay, back inside the ropes, it became a real scrap.
Totally back and forth. Valkyria hit some big moves like that running fisherman's buster.
Powerful move.
And then that superplex off the top. Huge moment.
But Becky fired back. Right. Lots of suplexes, going for submissions. She wasn't giving Lyra any space. The near falls felt really close.
So close. You really bought into them. And after that, Becky got even more desperate, grabbing the ropes on a pin attempt.
Classic shortcut.
And the ref, Jessica Carr, she played a part too.
Yeah, she stopped Becky from using a chair at one point.
Yeah.
A classic heel move attempt.
And then there was the whole thing with the turnbuckle pad later on.
Yeah, the exposed turnbuckle. Becky ripped the pad off, looking for that cheap advantage.
Right. But Valkyria blocked Becky's attempt to use the exposed steel to her advantage and hit her with the Nightwing.
Right.
The ref.
The count.
Yeah, the count seemed a little slow. Some reports said she had to reposition because of where the exposed buckle was. Just that slight hesitation.
Gave Becky time to kick out. The drama. You can feel the frustration.
Definitely. And there was apparently a thumb to the eye as well. Ref didn't catch it, just showed she was willing to do whatever it took.
So after all that, 18 minutes or so of just brutal action, how did it end?
Well, not how many expected. Becky went for her finisher, the manhandle slam.
Yeah.
Lyra countered, rolled her up, quick thinking, 1, 2, 3. Lyra Valkyria retains.
Wow, caught her completely off guard. Clean win for Lyra.
Clean win, yes. Maybe not that definitive statement finish some were expecting after such a war.
Yeah, a roll-up can feel a bit abrupt sometimes, especially after a long physical match like that.
And Becky's reaction told the whole story. Just pure rage.
Lost it.
completely lost it, attacked Lyra after the bell. It got so bad, officials, even GM Adam Pearce, had to run down and pull them apart.
Yep.
Made it absolutely clear this feud, not over, not by a long shot. And it was interesting, hearing the commentators, a lot of them seemed genuinely surprised Lyra won.
Really? Most people expected Becky to take the title.
Seems like it. Which honestly says a lot about how well Lyra's been built up as champion. One other small note. People noticed Lyra seemed to be favoring her nose after the match.
Oh, really? Maybe broken.
Possibly. Just shows how physical that match was. These athletes put their bodies through a lot.
No kidding. It was intense.
And the drama didn't even end with the bell because Michael Cole kept mentioning that potential nose injury afterwards. Is it broken? Is she okay? Leaves you hanging a bit.
Yeah, adds that immediate cliffhanger about her condition.
And reports also noted the crowd was really behind Lyra.
That's huge.
Yeah.
Getting that reaction against someone like Becky Lynch, that's a big deal for a rising star.
It really feels like a defining moment for her on the main roster, Beating Becky Lynch clean in the middle of the ring. That's a statement.
Yeah, it kind of proves she belongs, that she can stand on her own against the very best. Establishes her as a top talent.
So where does it go from here? Like you said, a rematch feels inevitable.
And maybe Lyra's fiancé gets involved somehow. Could add another twist.
Could be. It's also significant just thinking about the title itself. The Women's Intercontinental Championship. This was its first time being defended on a big stage like Backlash, right?
Good point. And you have to wonder if Becky's involvement is what gave it that spotlight. Her star power definitely elevates things.
That's a fair argument. Her name brings eyes. Let's look at the expert analysis then. Dave Meltzer's review, what did that say? It rated it pretty highly, didn't it?
Yeah, 4.25 stars, which is a very strong rating.
And his assessment.
He called it an excellent match, said it was Lyra's best showing in WWE so far. He made a point that they just seem to bring out the best in each other, Good chemistry.
Did he comment on Becky's role?
He did. Specifically mentioned Becky being very giving to Lyra in the match, and highlighted that losing cleanly, especially to multiple finishers, was a clear effort to help establish Lyra, to make her a star.
That's interesting, giving credit to Becky for helping elevate her opponent even in a heated rivalry.
Right. And he also made this other observation, kind of stepping back and looking at the whole Backlash show.
What was that?
He noted that the Lyra-Becky match was the only match on the entire card that didn't have any outside interference.
Really? The only one?
Apparently so. Which, suggests maybe an over-reliance on interference finishes elsewhere that night. It made their match stand out even more for being purely about the two competitors settling it in the ring.
So it wasn't just a great match in isolation. It stood out structurally on the show itself. Clean finish, focused story, makes sense.
Now there's another layer to this whole thing, something that happened outside the ropes but relates directly to the match.
Okay, what's that?
Well, it became something more unsettling afterwards. The sources detail a really significant and pretty nasty social media reaction aimed at Lyra Valkyria's fiancé, LJ Cleary.
Aimed at him? Why? What kind of reaction?
Just abuse, rude comments, people being awful online. And the analysis and the sources suggest it stemmed from, well, jealousy. Some fans were apparently upset that Lyra is in a real-life relationship.
Seriously? Because she's dating someone?
Yeah, and particularly someone not on the main WWE roster, though. The sources are quick to point out he is a well-known independent wrestler himself, and they've been together for, over a decade, since they were teenagers.
Wow. That's really unfortunate and kind of disturbing.
It really highlights that whole issue of parasocial relationships, doesn't it?
Explain that a bit more, that term.
Sure. It's basically when a fan develops this intense, one-sided feeling of connection or intimacy with a performer, like a wrestler or celebrity. They feel like they know them, have a right to their life, even though the performer obviously has no idea who the fan is.
Right.
Sometimes fans might be trying to fill a void in their own lives, maybe projecting feelings or just completely objectifying the performer, seeing the character, not the real person with their own life and relationships.
It's a really uncomfortable side of fandom, isn't it? When those lines get blurred and fans feel entitled to a performer's personal life. And clearly, it impacts not just the performer, but the people around them, like her fiancé in this case.
Exactly. A really stark reminder.
Then, of course, the broadcast moves on. You get the ads for WWE 2K25, WWA LFG, the plugs for SummerSlam coming up in Jersey, hosted by Cardi B.
Right. The wheels keep turning.
Reminds you this intense match is one part of the bigger WWE machine.
Exactly. Connects the dots, promotes the next things, keeps the audience plugged into the whole universe. Standard, but effective.
And then they pivoted hard to the main event. John Cena versus Randy Orton, billed as maybe their last ever one-on-one match.
Huge.
A rivalry for the ages. They even dropped that history nugget. First match way back in OVW, January 2002. Most recent singles match, SmackDown, Feb 2017.
Wow, that really puts their longevity into perspective. Decades.
It does. And they showed that old OVW clip, too. Cena versus Orton from way back.
Crazy seeing them so young. It shows you the journey.
Yeah, good way to put it. And hey, can't forget the theme song for Backlash, Detonator, by Killer Mike.
Oh, yeah.
Also featured in Call of Duty, apparently. A little bit of crossover there.
Yeah, adds to the overall vibe, the energy of the show. And tying into a huge game like that.
Smart way to maybe grab some extra eyeballs. Backlash 2025. Dominik Mysterio defending his Intercontinental Championship against Penta. What a clash. Let's dive straight into what made this match tick.
Definitely. So, okay, let's set the scene a bit before Backlash even happened. Dominik Mysterio, he won the IC title at WrestleMania 41. It was a fatal four-way.
He basically immediately started calling himself the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time.
Over and over again. It was quite something.
It really is. I mean, think about the history of that title. The commentary audio even brings it up. Hall of Famers, legends have held that belt.
Yeah, absolute icons.
So for Dominik, relatively early in his career, to just stake that claim, it's audacious, right? It tells you a lot about his character straight away.
Definitely paints a picture. Okay, so that leads right into Backlash. The audio commentary set it up as pride meets punishment.
Which fits perfectly. You've got Dominik with those huge claims, and then Penta, who the commentary said has really taken WWE by storm.
And this is his first big shot, right? First singles title opportunity in WWE. The buzz was definitely there.
It creates a great dynamic, the brash champ versus the exciting newcomer. And the commentary team, you had Alicia Taylor doing the announcing, Michael Cole and Wade Barrett on the call, and they really leaned into that contrast, built the hype. Right from the get-go, the crowd reaction for Dominik Mysterio was, well, surprisingly positive, like a real strong babyface pop.
Oh, really? Like louder than usual for him?
Yeah, some reports compared it to the energy he had back at WrestleMania, which is pretty significant for a guy who's usually, the villain.
That is interesting. But apparently someone in the crowd had a sign during Dom's entrance. What was it? Razor Ramon's toothpick hits harder than you.
Ouch! That's pretty brutal.
Yeah. Dominik's gear.
The tribute.
Yeah, a tribute to his godfather, Nico the Millionaire, the original Psychosis.
Ah, nice little detail with the gear, leaning into his heritage while still being the arrogant champ.
Right. Which is cool history.
It is. And Meltzer's notes actually mention he thought Conan was Dominik's godfather. So funny how those details get mixed up sometimes.
Yeah, the public perception versus reality, right? Okay, so match starts. Dominik coming out really aggressive.
One account mentioned Mysterio just shoved Penta right away. Aggressive start.
Okay, and Penta.
Fired right back. Drop kick. Just immediate back and forth action in those first few moments.
But Penta didn't just roll over, right? He had his own offense.
Oh, yeah. He hit that spinning takeover, then his pop-up super kick. He even locked in the backstabber, the double knees to the back. Got a 2 count off that.
Sounds like classic Penta. Dynamic stuff.
Mysterio apparently launched Penta crotch first onto the top rope. Ouch.
Yeah, never fun.
Then he drop-kicked Penta right off the apron to the floor, hard fall. But then Mysterio pulled off something pretty impressive early on.
What was that?
A suicide dive, but he transitioned it straight into a DDT on the floor.
Wow. Okay, so dive through the ropes, catches Penta, DDT right there on the outside. That's high impact.
Definitely. And the reports say the crowd absolutely ate it up. Got a huge reaction.
I bet. And then Penta got driven into the steel steps hard. And the commentators were like, that definitely hurt him. You could tell it took a toll.
Yeah, that adds to the punishment narrative, right? Softening Penta up. Even a resilient guy like him feels that.
And Dom stayed on offense.
Precisely. He also hit his slingshot senton for a near fall. He even did Penta's walk, mocking him.
Playing the heel.
Totally. Then he kind of switched gears, started trying to grind Penta down. Lots of stomps. Put him in a rear chin lock for a bit.
Trying to wear him out. But then things change. Penta came back and hit Dom with a sling blade.
Yeah.
I also saw mention of a big crossbody off the ring post to the floor.
Yeah, that was in there.
Pulling out the stops. But Mysterio weathered it.
He did.
And there were counters, too, right? It wasn't just trading moves.
Right. Well, that's their styles clashing, isn't it? Dominik, maybe more grounded, opportunistic sometimes. Penta, all athleticism and risk-taking. The commentary did a good job highlighting that. Sets up the big moments later. We also saw Dominik use some familiar moves. He tried the 619, which Penta reversed. Penta followed up with that quick kick from the apron.
Yeah.
And a slingshot crucifix bomb, which also only got 2. He was really throwing everything at Dominik. Showed they'd both done their homework.
Good back-and-forth psychology. Big moment. But Dom hit Oblivion.
Dom hit Oblivion.
That's Liv Morgan's finisher, his girlfriend.
And the commentary pointed that out, didn't they? Mentioned Liv was away. It weaves in those other stories.
Exactly.
Commentary apparently pointed out it wasn't quite as smooth as hers.
Hey, okay. But it still nearly won the match.
Yeah. Got another 2 count. Added to the drama, you know?
Using his dad's move, his girlfriend's move, it adds layers. Even when Liv isn't there, it feels like she's part of the story.
It absolutely does.
But Penta gave some back.
Oh, yeah. Big time. He hit that insane Mexican destroyer, the flipping piledriver, on the ring apron.
On the apron. Good grief. That's dangerous for both guys.
Totally. Both crash hard to the floor after that. Looked like it could have been the end right there.
You'd think.
Yeah.
But this is where things usually get complicated with Dominik's matches, isn't it? Interference.
Bingo. Carlito shows up at ringside, and almost immediately he's distracting the ref, pulling his attention away.
Predictable, maybe, but effective.
Mm-hmm.
And Judgment Day wasn't far behind, I assume.
You got it. JD McDonough and Finn Balor came out. McDonough actually held Penta.
Okay. Blatant interference.
Right. And then Balor, well, this is weird. The reports say he took a really long time getting a steel chair, like noticeably slow. Said he fiddled and farted around, took forever to actually do anything.
Yeah. Fiddled and farted. Seriously. Slow enough for the ref to see.
Exactly. The ref caught them and ended up ejecting both McDonough and Balor.
Interesting. The commentary apparently picked up on that too, suggesting Balor might have been dragging his feet on purpose, maybe not fully helping Dominik.
Yeah, adds another layer to that whole Judgment Day internal drama, doesn't it? The speculation about Finn turning or something.
For sure.
Yeah.
Keeps that simmering.
Yeah.
But Penta didn't just let them walk away.
Nope. Even with all that chaos, he managed a big dive over the ropes, took out both Carlito and McDonough on the outside.
Taking out the trash. But the chaos wasn't over yet, was it? There's another person involved.
Unbelievably, yes. While the ref was still dealing with Balor being ejected, yelling at him on the apron, El Grande Americano appeared.
El Grande Americano. Okay, where did he come from?
Out of nowhere, it seems. And he headbutted Penta with what the reports called a loaded mask.
A loaded mask headbutt. Seriously. Okay, that feels excessive.
Yeah, some felt it was maybe a bit too much interference piled on, kind of overkill after Carlito and Judgment Day, but it definitely knocked Penta loopy.
And Mysterio capitalized.
Immediately hit the frog splash, his dad's move, right off the top rope. 1, 2, 3, it was over.
Wow, how long did the match go?
Clocked in around 9 minutes and 20 seconds. Pretty quick, but man, they packed a lot in.
So Dominik Mysterio walks out, still the Intercontinental Champion,
Yeah.
but not exactly cleanly.
Not even close. And that seems to be the story, right? The commentary, the reports, they all highlighted the interference-heavy finish. It's kind of his thing now.
Dirty Dom. Living up to the name. It's part of his character. Using Judgment Day, using whoever to keep the title.
And the weird part is, as we mentioned, the crowd reaction. He's cheating, but he's still getting these big babyface pops sometimes. It's a strange dynamic.
It really is. Fans seem to almost enjoy the rule breaking or at least acknowledge the character work. It definitely blurs those old face heel lines.
Absolutely. And this messy finish, well, it sets up a bunch of possibilities, doesn't it?
For sure. You've got Penta likely gunning for El Grande Americano now after that headbutt. Maybe bring in some other lucha guys to back him up.
That makes sense. And then there's the whole Finn Balor thing within Judgment Day. Is he really on Dominik's side? Is he going to maybe bring someone new into the group? Lots to watch there.
Definitely. It's interesting, though. One take I saw felt this match was actually the weakest of the night.
Oh, really? Why?
Felt it was more like a Raw match, you know, focused more on just advancing these interference storylines rather than being a great standalone wrestling match.
I can see that perspective. But others
apparently quite enjoyed it, maybe exceeded lower expectations, largely because of that unique crowd energy for Dominik.
Right. Shows how subjective it all is, what people look for in a match. Story versus action versus atmosphere.
Exactly. And Penta, despite the loss and the interference, still came out looking strong, right? His athleticism, his connection with the fans.
Oh, yeah. Universally praised. Some people are even saying they want to see a darker version of him now, like a murderous Penta.
Ooh, that could be interesting. A more violent edge after being screwed over like this.
And they explicitly link this finish back to Gable's whole issue with luchadors that had been mentioned before.
Right, that storyline.
And that little detail from earlier sources about Dom helping Gable learn the dark arts of lucha by giving him a phone number.
Ah, so that earlier detail paid off directly here. The sources connected those dots.
Connected them very clearly. Dom's favor to Gable, helping him learn the dark arts, results in Gable helping Dom retain the title against a luchador.
Okay.
It really makes you wonder about Gable's motive, right?
Which brings us nicely to Dave Meltzer's analysis, Mr. Wrestling Observer himself.
Right. So Meltzer rated the match 3.5 stars. Solid match quality.
Okay, decent rating.
But he also said the finish was predictable.
Predictable. Really? Watching it live, it felt like anything but.
Well, predictable from his perspective, likely thinking about the bigger picture, the long-term booking.
Ah, okay. What was his theory then?
He figures this whole chaotic ending is basically set up. It's building towards Penta versus El Grande Americano down the line. He even suggested a mask versus mask match might be where it's headed, logically, based on the characters and the history described in the sources, similar to what Rey Mysterio was doing before his injury.
Makes sense. Mask versus mask would be huge there.
Lots of questions.
And it's not over. Penta beat Gable clean on Raw the next night. So, okay. Payback started, but the feud's clearly rolling.
Definitely. Penta gets some revenge, keeps the story hot.
Meanwhile, the audio caught Wade Barrett making jokes, saying he and Dominik are now neck and neck for the greatest IC champ title.
Yeah, Barrett's commentary is great for that. A bit of humor, and it also kind of subtly undermines Dominik's boasting.
It does.
Yeah.
So, okay, beyond the match, lots of other stuff mentioned.
Yeah, like ads for, what was it, Doom, the Dark Ages.
Yeah, that video game.
Yeah.
And Riyadh season. Oh, and that Old Spice ad with The Miz.
Right, and they plugged UFC 315 in Montreal, too. That TKO synergy showing up.
Definitely. It shows how these WWE shows fit into this bigger entertainment picture now. Cross-promoting with UFC under the same roof.
Makes sense from a business perspective, leveraging both fan bases.
They also hyped the next Raw AJ Styles versus Finn Balor was teased. And maybe CM Punk showing up.
Always teasing Punk. Keeps people tuning in.
And they promoted Saturday night's main event, too. Jey Uso versus Logan Paul. And they even threw back to the first ever SNME from 1985. Showed Randy Orton's dad, Cowboy Bob Orton.
See, that's smart. Connects the present to the past. Uses that history, that legacy, which is such a big part of WWE. Reminds you how long they've been doing this.
Speaking of history, they really pushed the John Cena versus Randy Orton match happening later that night.
Oh, yeah, the stats they threw out were wild.
Weren't they? Like, their third Backlash match, 11th one-on-one at a PLE, 24th time fighting with a title on the line, and then listing all their world title reigns combined.
It just puts that main event in perspective. You've got these huge established legends clashing, which kind of elevates everything else on the card, too, including the IC title match we just dissected.
Good point. And randomly, they also plugged the new Karate Kid movie. Saw some fans dressed up even.
Yeah, wrestling and pop culture, they always overlap. It's all part of the big show. Okay, let's jump right in. We're doing a deep dive today on a match that really got people talking. Gunther versus Pat McAfee at Backlash 2025.
And this wasn't just McAfee versus Gunther, was it? Michael Cole, his broadcast partner, was right there, emotionally, maybe too emotionally involved.
Oh, absolutely. It adds such a fascinating layer. And really, the core of it is that contrast, isn't it? You've got the commentator, athletic background, sure, but not a wrestler, facing this just dominant, highly respected champion.
Yeah, it immediately makes you wonder, okay, how is this going to work? Is it just spectacle, or is there a real story here? Can he even compete?
You got to rewind to WrestleMania 41 first. Gunther loses the World Heavyweight Championship to Jey Uso. Huge moment, massive reign over.
And, losing a title like that after holding it for so long.
Yeah.
That's going to have consequences.
Oh, absolutely. And it did. The very next night on Raw, Gunther basically snaps and goes after Michael Cole and Pat McAfee at the commentary desk.
Yeah, the sources are clear. This wasn't just like yelling. It got physical.
Really physical.
Yeah.
He starts by properly intimidating Cole, like bullying him, shoves McAfee out of the way.
Just disregarded him initially.
Yeah. And then, boom, locks Cole in a sleeper hold. McAfee, naturally, tries to jump in, help his broadcast partner.
As you would.
Definitely a Barbie KO out of nowhere moment.
Mm-hmm.
Barbie KO out of nowhere. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. I'd come to your rescue, Ken.
Poor Ken. He's in trouble. Needs rescuing.
Wham. Pink plastic justice.
Exactly. Wouldn't know what hit him.
Ah, Gunther, the unfortunate recipient of the Barbie KO.
And think about using it day to day, like your internet drops out
Well,
suddenly.
Barbie KO out of nowhere.
Exactly. Or, you stub your toe.
Or the garden gnome staged a coup. You start looking at everyday things differently, right?
Exactly.
And that's when Gunther turns his attention. Same move, sleeper hold on McAfee, and keeps it locked in until Pat actually passes out.
Wow. And the summary even mentions his face turning blue. That's intense.
Super intense. So
Yeah.
that whole scene, that attack, that's the immediate trigger for this Backlash match. It sets everything up.
That it immediately changes the stakes, doesn't it? It's not about a title anymore. It's personal. It's revenge, defending your friend, and maybe for Gunther, it's about venting that frustration from WrestleMania.
Definitely. And you felt that personal edge right away at Backlash. Before the bell even rang, Michael Cole flat out said, look, I'm biased.
He just announced it.
Yep. Said he couldn't be impartial, that McAfee was his friend, and he wanted Gunther to get beaten after what he did to them. He felt responsible almost.
That's interesting, because usually commentary tries to maintain some neutrality, right? But here, Cole leans right into it.
Completely.
Yeah.
And it shaped the whole broadcast. They even ran a video package before the match, showing the title loss, showing the attack on Raw, really hammering home why this fight was happening.
Setting the emotional table for the audience, juxtaposing the attack with McAfee stepping up.
And McAfee's entrance kind of played into that whole vibe, too. The football jersey, the jeans, the sneakers.
Oh, God, no. Here we go again with the fucking shoe talk.
Right, okay, wow. Some observers felt that was, actually pretty perfect for the character he was playing in that moment, stepping out of the commentary booth.
Exactly. It visually screamed, I don't belong here, but I'm doing it anyway.
Wow. Yeah.
It felt authentic to that specific situation.
And they also flashed that graphic during McAfee's entrance, remember? His 8th match, his record, 2nd time against a former world champ.
Oh, yeah. And the nod to his NFL game in St. Louis, playing to the local crowd, all reinforcing that underdog feel.
Right.
And then you juxtapose that with Gunther. Here's this established force, a dominant champion just recently dethroned.
Mm-hmm.
But, as the commentary pointed out, that loss to Jey Uso kind of casts Gunther as this, wounded Goliath. Still incredibly dangerous, obviously, but maybe needing to prove something again.
Yeah, reassert that dominance. And there was that funny visual. As Gunther was coming out, apparently a fan sign popped up.
Oh, yeah, the sign. It said, start filming Barbie 2 so Cena leaves.
Sure, I'll get right on that after I finish reorganizing my shoe collection.
Seriously? It's fucking shoe talk. Again.
Right, because clearly the best way to get someone to leave is to threaten them with a sequel.
Clearly.
Works every time. If you're a scriptwriter, that is.
Oh, wow. So, back to the match.
You knew who was supposed to win, on paper at least.
Which, when the bell rang, is pretty much how it started, wasn't it?
Oh, yeah. Gunther just took control. Power, size advantage. It was all on display.
And those chops. The reports really emphasize the sound, the impact.
Brutal. Just descriptions of these loud, stinging chops echoing. You got the sense they really hurt.
You did. But McAfee, he didn't just, fold immediately. He tried to fight back.
He did. He used his background, right? Those kicks, trying some strikes.
Yeah, threw a few punches, even tried to exchange chops at one point, which seemed ambitious.
Ambitious is a good word. The difference in power was pretty stark. One report even made a comparison, kind of jokingly, to a wrestler known for, let's say, less than stellar punches.
Ah, right. It highlighted the gap in experience and power.
And speaking of experience, or lack thereof, there was that moment McAfee went for a springboard move.
Oh, yeah, the trip.
Exactly. Slipped up. Just a little reminder that, this isn't his regular day job. It made the whole thing feel a bit more real, actually.
It did. And while all this action is happening, Cole is just losing it at ringside.
Completely. He basically ditched the commentator hat and put on the cheerleader one.
Totally. Urging McAfee on, yelling advice, even telling Gunther to just finish it sometimes like he couldn't watch.
And Cole, you could just hear the worry in his voice, especially when Gunther started doing, Gunther things.
So that commentary bias, it actually kind of pulls you in more, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Makes you feel the stakes alongside them.
Totally. And Wade Barrett, the other commentator, was apparently trying to be the voice of reason, like, Michael, stay out of it, calm down.
Yeah, trying to keep him safe, keep him professional. It just shows how much Cole's reactions became part of the whole performance.
They really did.
Barrett even made the point, didn't he, that Gunther was probably wrestling even angrier because he'd just lost the big one, made it more dangerous.
Exactly. And there were points where Gunther seemed to be enjoying it, almost like he was playing with McAfee a bit.
Letting him get up, maybe landing a shot, then just cutting him down again.
Right. But, and this is key, McAfee just kept getting up.
He showed incredible heart, you have to say. Took a beating. German suplexes the powerbomb.
Yeah. Gunther threw his big moves at him.
But McAfee wouldn't stay down. People were comparing it to those old 80s, 90s babyface comebacks.
There was even mention of him trying to hulk up almost, though maybe not quite pulling it off fully. But that spirit, that resilience was definitely there.
Absolutely. And he did get some offense in too, didn't he?
He did. A pump kick, landed a super kick, even got a near fall with an O'Connor roll, I think. Moments where you thought, maybe.
Just for a second.
Oh, yeah. You could hear the desperation build. They were almost pleading for McAfee to find a way, or even for it to just end at points.
Especially during that Boston Crab spot. That looked brutal.
Brutal. And that's when Cole completely lost it.
And then Cole actually got physically involved.
Yeah, that was wild. Left the announce desk, ran over, and actually grabbed Gunther's leg.
Which is just insane. You never see a commentator physically interfere like that.
Never. Shows how personal it got. Reached out from ringside and tripped Gunther.
Straight up interference. Someone compared it to like a classic Bobby Heenan move. Heel manager tactics from the babyface commentator.
It was definitely a surprise moment, added some chaos.
Didn't change the ultimate outcome, though.
No, didn't work, obviously. Gunther just shook him off and went right back to work on Pat. Locked in that sleeper hold, and that was it. McAfee passed out. Clean win for Gunther in the end. But even Cole and Barrett, disappointed as they were, immediately started praising McAfee's effort. Called it incredible.
So the expected winner won. But the way it happened
Was way more compelling than you might have thought. And the ending, after the match, was interesting too.
It's a show of respect from Gunther.
Yeah, that nod. Some people thought it might have been a handshake offer at first. It was subtle.
Which, for Gunther's character, felt a little unexpected, maybe. He's usually all business, very dominant, dismissive.
It sparked some debate. Did it fit? Was it a sign of respect for McAfee pushing him, showing that heart? Or was it slightly out of character?
Depends on how you see Gunther, I suppose.
Yeah.
But the crowd certainly appreciated McAfee.
Oh, yeah. Big standing ovation for him in St. Louis. They loved the effort.
The rating. What did Meltzer land on for this one?
He went with 3 1/4 stars.
3 1/4. Okay. So good, solid, but not like an all-timer in his book.
Right. Definitely watchable, had its moments, but yeah, not reaching those upper echelons according to him.
Got it. So what were those moments? The notes seem to really focus on the atmosphere, the crowd.
Absolutely. That was huge here. Meltzer mentioned a lot of heat for the match. Real intense crowd energy.
Like specific things.
Yeah, like fans chanting, "You tapped out" at Gunther, referencing, the Jey Uso loss. And he really pointed out how much the crowd got behind Pat McAfee, especially when Michael Cole got involved from commentary.
Ah, yes, the Michael Cole situation. That definitely caused some talk. Meltzer called that out specifically, didn't he? Cole tripping Gunther.
He did. And Meltzer's take was interesting. He said it was a bit much, for a commentator to get that physical.
Yeah, crosses the line maybe.
But he immediately followed up saying it worked. It was effective. He actually wrote it was the only way they could make a near fall on McAfee even remotely believable at that point.
So, okay, maybe bending the rules, but it served a purpose for the story and that crowd reaction Meltzer highlighted.
That seems to be his read on it, yeah. McAfee didn't tap out. Meltzer noted he passed out in Gunther's hold.
Okay. Protects McAfee a little bit, maybe.
It's sort of. And then came the really surprising bit. Gunther seemed to endorse McAfee afterwards. Gave him a nod, some respect. And Meltzer jumped right on that. He explicitly said it was not what a heel not about to turn face would do. It didn't fit the mold.
So did he think Gunther is turning face then?
Well, not necessarily. He added a really important qualifier there. He pointed out that Gunther has been, quote, gone back and forth based on the moment for a while now.
Ah, inconsistent.
Exactly. So while that post-match moment looked like a face turn clue, Meltzer kind of pumps the brakes, suggesting it might just be another inconsistent character beat rather than a definite turn, given Gunther's recent presentation.
What about the result itself and the actual wrestling part?
Right, so Gunther winning. Meltzer said that got over huge in the building. The live crowd loved the outcome.
But I sense a but coming.
You got it.
Yeah.
But he was pretty blunt. Meltzer said the wrestling itself was not good.
Ouch. Specifically.
He called out McAfee's comebacks in particular as not being technically sound.
So, technically weak, but the finish landed and the crowd was hot. That's quite a mix.
It really is, and it kind of shows what Meltzer valued in this specific instance. The pure wrestling. Not great in his view, but the story.
The story worked.
Yeah, he said the story worked great.
And that story was?
Basically, McAfee taking a beating. Getting in those little bursts of offense, the ones Meltzer called technically weak, but never looking like a credible threat to actually win.
Right. The underdog getting squashed, but showing heart kind of thing.
Exactly. The crowd bought into his fight. They popped for things like Cole trying to help him, but the narrative was clear. It was an uphill climb, likely unwinnable, and that final result, Gunther winning, resonated because of that journey. So for Gunther, this win, it puts him back on track after WrestleMania, right? Reasserts his dominance.
For sure. It's a statement win, reminds everyone just how dangerous he is.
Yeah.
And kind of clears the path for what's next.
And he didn't wait long to announce what's next, did he? 2 days later, Raw comes around.
Yep, straight back to business. Announces he's coming for the World Heavyweight Championship again. After Money in the Bank, though.
Right. But he threw down the gauntlet. Challenged whoever the champ is, Jey Uso or maybe Logan Paul, after their match for June 9th on Raw, his first shot since he lost it.
Any word on what's next for Gunther after that?
Well, there was some chatter, maybe speculation, about a potential match down the line. One name thrown out was Goldberg, maybe for a retirement match scenario. But that's just talk for now.
Interesting. So looking back at the whole thing, the general feeling seems to be it worked better than expected.
I think so. People praised the story, the performances. Booking McAfee as the outgunned commentator with fight was seen as the right call.
Made sense. He wasn't trying to be presented as Gunther's equal.
Yeah.
Just someone with guts.
And for the bigger picture, it did a couple of things. It helped Gunther look strong again after a prior loss, kind of reset him as this dominant force.
Right, reestablished him.
And McAfee, he got what some called a moral victory. Looked tough, connected with the fans even more, even in losing.
Definitely came out looking good despite the loss. So the McAfee match, as intense and personal as it was, seems like it was maybe just a necessary detour for Gunther. A way to get his mojo back before refocusing on a main prize.
Seems that way. Now, just quickly, because there was other stuff going on around this, they aired that promo for the new Karate Kid movie, Right
Absurd
Happened.
Legends 1 coming out soon.
Yeah.
And the Cody Rhodes vodka ad.
Yeah, Wheatley American Vodka just reminds you it's all part of the bigger entertainment machine, you know? Sponsorships, cross-promotions.
Always part of the package.
And the commentary team, they pivoted pretty quickly, too. Started hyping up the next big shows, Worlds Collide with AAA, and then Money in the Bank.
Both in L.A., June 7th. They mentioned tickets were still available for the individual nights, always selling the future.
Keeps the train rolling. The story never really stops, does it?
Never. Always. The next match, the next event.
And speaking of future stuff, right at the end, they threw out those stats for Cena and Orton.
Oh, yeah. What did they highlight?
Debut year, 2002 for both. World title 17 for Cena, 14 for Orton. Other belts, Rumble wins, Money in the Bank wins. Basically reminding everyone of their huge legacies.
Setting the stage, maybe. Hinting at future possibilities down the line between those two legends. Always good to keep that history in mind.
Definitely adds context. Okay, the atmosphere in that building. Wow, you could just feel it, couldn't you? That real big fight feel. The commentators even mentioned getting goosebumps.
Oh, absolutely. Intense anticipation.
Right.
Like something major was about to go down.
Exactly. So let's dive right into it. We're breaking down that huge, undisputed WWE Championship match from Backlash 2025, John Cena versus Randy Orton.
And what a match to break down. I mean, the history there,
Yeah.
it's just immense, isn't it? We're talking about a rivalry that's basically spanned 2 decades.
It really has. You think back, like, all the way to 2002, OVW, Ohio Valley Wrestling.
Their training ground, yeah.
Right, and their careers just took off almost side by side, both gunning to be the top guy. And the craziest stat, going into Backlash, head-to-head wins and losses.
Dead even. Incredible.
Just completely tied. It sets the stage perfectly.
Well, it speaks to how closely matched they've been throughout their careers, despite maybe having different styles or different connections with the audience at times.
And the stakes here at Backlash, I mean, they couldn't have been higher, really. Cena coming in as the 17-time champ,
The record holder?
the all-time record, defending against Orton in Orton's hometown, St. Louis.
Yeah, massive advantage, you'd think.
And Orton was going for number 15 himself. The big question was, could Orton stop what some people were calling Cena's destructive farewell tour?
That whole narrative adds another layer. Is Cena trying to cement his legacy? Is Orton trying to reclaim his own spot right at the very top? It's about more than just the belt, you know?
It felt like it. It really felt like a battle for legacy itself.
And that's key in wrestling, isn't it? Legacy. What does it mean? What do you do to protect it or build it?
Definitely. So, okay, the build-up, that video package they aired before the match.
Oh, fantastic package. Really set the mood.
It did. Showcasing Cena winning number 17, Orton hitting that RKO counter, all set to Warriors by Imagine Dragons, just perfectly captured that feeling of these two, well, warriors colliding.
Those packages are so good at hitting the emotional beats, reminding everyone of the journey these guys have been on. Connects you instantly.
Then Orton's entrance.
Yeah.
The place just erupted.
Oh, yeah. St. Louis went next for him, singing his theme song.
The whole crowd. And that graphic they showed listing his titles. I mean, wow.
It's a reminder, isn't it? 10-time WWE champ, 4-time world heavyweight.
Intercontinental, U.S., Tag Team Champ, Money in the Bank winner, 2 Royal Rumbles.
The list goes on and on. It establishes him, especially in front of that hometown crowd, as a huge deal in his own right, not just some challenger.
No doubt. But even with all that love for Orton, you still heard it.
Oh, the let's go Cena sucks, yeah.
Let's go Cena.
Cena sucks.
Let's go Cena.
Cena sucks.
Still there. After all these years, all the titles, Cena still splits the crowd like nobody else.
It's part of his whole aura, I guess. Love him or hate him, you react. And that energy feeds into the match itself.
For sure. Then Cena comes out, his graphic obviously highlighting the 17 world titles.
Which is just staggering.
It really is. And his 81st televised world title match. But they also noted his Backlash record was 2-3.
Right. Which was interesting. Like, maybe this specific event, it's a potential weak spot, even for Cena. It adds a little intrigue.
Maybe, yeah.
So the bell rings, they lock up, standard collar and elbow, and then what?
Cena. He offers the handshake. Classic Cena, you think?
Uh-huh.
But nope. Pulls it back, quick eye poke, straight away.
Dirty pool right from the start.
Yeah.
And Orton.
Orton fires right back.
Yeah.
No hesitation. He gives as good as he gets there.
And the commentators jumped on that, didn't they?
They contrasted it with Cody Rhodes, remember? How Cody had that moral purity, wouldn't take the low road against Cena.
Whereas Orton, Orton's history shows he has absolutely no problem taking the low road if it gets him the win.
Exactly. The commentators felt that gave Orton an edge, that unpredictability. Anything goes with the Viper.
Well, that's his character, isn't it? The apex predator, the Viper. Ruthlessness is kind of his calling card. You expect it?
They even talked about his psyche, no absence of malice, those sadistic voices.
But then they immediately flipped it, saying this was maybe the most mature version of Randy Orton in 2025.
Yeah. It's that conflict within him that makes the character so interesting, right?
It suggests he's still dangerous, maybe even more so because he's smarter now, more calculating alongside the brutality.
Could be.
So the match gets going. It's back and forth.
Yeah, the usual stuff early on. Shoulder tackles, headlocks. So early in the match, something kind of weird happened. Cena took this stroll around the ring.
Yeah, that was unusual for him.
Wow.
Not very hustle, loyalty, respect.
Right. Felt off-brand. And the commentary team latched onto it, questioning his headspace, suggesting maybe he knew he couldn't just, overpower Orton straight up.
Signaling a change in tactics?
Yeah.
A more psychological game plan?
Perhaps. Then came this bit of info from commentary that was pretty major. They said the entire locker room
Yeah, I remember this.
was supposedly united behind Orton against Cena, who they called a spiteful megalomaniac.
Oof. Strong words.
And they repeated that idea about Cena wanting to retire the title, be the last real champion. It paints Cena's character in a really different light now, doesn't it? Kind of antagonistic.
It makes Orton's challenge feel even bigger. He's not just fighting Cena. He's fighting for, the rest of the roster against this guy who thinks he's above it all.
Yeah, huge implications. And the commentary, they pointed out Orton's pacing, how methodical he was. And they compared it to how Cena actually beat Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania. using that same kind of deliberate strategy.
Shows that strategic layer, doesn't
Yeah.
it? It's not just about moves. It's about controlling the pace, adapting your style. And the commentary, they jumped right on the main stories. Orton needing the hometown crowd.
Yeah, harness that energy for title number 15.
Exactly. And for Cena, they were suggesting he might need to dig deep, find that bitter, resentful side we apparently saw at WrestleMania 41.
While also saying Orton looked like he was in the best shape of his life.
So you've got that dynamic right away. The perhaps bitter veteran against the challenger who looks physically peaked. Then we get Orton's, they're calling it the Orton Stomp now, not the Garvin Stomp.
Yeah, seems like a little rebranding there.
Okay, the Orton Stomp.
They even did that sleeper hold sequence.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And the commentary team had that funny line about the sleepers looking like basic headlocks sometimes.
Like a little wink, maybe. A nod to, their era when that was more standard.
What does that kind of comment do? Is it just nostalgia?
It's partly nostalgia, yeah, but it also kind of grounds the match in their history. Reminds you, these guys aren't rookies. They're veterans with a shared past. It connects with the fans who've been watching them forever.
Right. But then things escalated, didn't they? The finishers started coming out.
Oh, yeah.
And Cena hits the five-knuckle shuffle, goes for the attitude adjustment.
And Orton slips out. Orton hits the draping DDT, sets up for the RKO.
But Cena blocks it. Smart wrestling.
But then, that moment, the one that just made everyone gasp.
You had to double down. Oh, man.
Cena hits the attitude adjustment, but somehow at the exact same time, Orton hits the RKO. Just like that. Boom.
The timing had to be perfect. Just absolutely perfect. It shows how well they know each other after all these years. Counter for counter.
Just an unbelievable spot. Showed how evenly matched they still were.
Totally. And the commentators, they were really selling the impact of the RKO, right? How sudden it is.
Yeah, and not just on the guy taking it, but almost like it takes something out of Orton, too. That explosive effort.
Is that a real thing, you think? Does delivering a move like that drain you?
I mean, physically, yeah, it's an all-out burst. Mentally, too, probably. Put everything into hitting it perfectly. So, yeah, the commentary highlighting that cost adds another layer, makes it feel more like a struggle for both guys. And looking ahead, they brought up Orton saying he thinks he's got, 10 more years left?
Yeah, and teasing the idea. Could Orton eventually reach 17 titles himself? Match Cena's record.
Planting those seeds for the future, you could almost see it.
That's what keeps you hooked, right? Thinking about what could happen down the line.
Totally.
And the match just escalated from there. Cena finally hits the AA. 1, 2.
Kick out. Thought that was it for sure.
Me too. Then later, Cena dives off the top, maybe for the shoulder tackle.
RKO, midair. Another one out of nowhere.
Incredible counter. And then Cena gets really nasty.
Oh, yeah, the mockery.
Starts slapping the mat, teasing the punt kick. Orton's old finisher.
A really dangerous one, yeah.
And he just stops short. Doesn't do it, just stares him down.
That felt personal, like twisting the knife. Not just beating him, but humiliating him, reminding everyone of Orton's past, maybe, and showing off his own new mean streak.
And from there, it just went off the rails, didn't it?
Yeah.
The ref bumps started.
Yep. First one, Cena shoves Orton right into Chad Patton. Ref down.
And with no ref.
Cena hits another AA, number 3, I think. Then he goes out, grabs the belt.
You knew that was coming.
Comes back in the ring, belt in hand, RKO. Orton hits another one.
But no ref to count it immediately.
Right, there's a delay. Patton starts to stir, makes the count, slow count, and Cena kicks out.
Unreal. Orton must have been losing his mind.
You could see it. That's when he went outside and started clearing off the announce table.
What's the point of all these ref bumps? Does it just signal chaos?
Pretty much. It's like, okay, the rules are out the window now. It allows for more interference, weapons, that kind of stuff. Heightens the drama, makes it feel like anything can happen, especially with heel Cena. It fits the narrative that he's creating chaos.
So they're outside. Orton's cleared the table, but Cena gets the upper hand again.
Shoves Orton into the steel steps.
And takes out the ref again. Patton goes down a second time.
Just collateral damage everywhere.
But Orton comes back, lifts Cena, attitude adjustment, onto the announce table.
Yeah, but the table, it didn't really break right, did it?
No, it kind of just folded awkwardly. Cena sort of bounced off.
And the commentators even called it out, like maybe that botch spot led to an audible.
Because right after, Orton grabs a regular table from under the ring.
Sets it up.
And powerbombs Cena through that one. Much cleaner break.
Yeah, that definitely worked. Funny how those little unplanned moments happen, huh? Shows they got to think on their feet.
Totally. So back in the ring, what now?
Yeah.
Just trading finishers.
Basically, yeah. Finisher spam time, RKO.
And finally, another ref runs down. Eddie or Ringo.
Okay, maybe now we get some order.
Yep. Cena grabs the title belt
Oh, come on.
and just clocks a Ringo with it. Third ref down.
3 refs. Is that a record? At what point is it just too much?
That's the debate, isn't it? Some people love that kind of chaotic spectacle. Others find it, like, totally unbelievable, takes them out of the match.
With Cena being the heel now, maybe it works. Like, he's the one causing all this, breaking down the system.
Maybe.
Another RKO.
And then, just when you think it can't get any crazier.
Here comes the GM, Nick Aldis, and like half the backstage officials march down.
Trying to restore order, presumably.
But Orton
snaps. Completely loses it. RKO party.
hits Aldis, hits Shane Helms, Shundavari, Jamie Hummel. They even mentioned a local guy, Austin Militalo, apparently an extra, got an RKO.
Just total pandemonium.
Yeah.
Orton had completely lost it.
Just RKOs for everyone.
Just pure frustration boiling over, like, get out of my way, authority doesn't matter right now. Targeting Aldis felt big, though. A message to management.
It really did.
Yeah.
And it looked like he was finally going to go for the punt kick.
Yeah, lining Cena up.
And then, out of nowhere, R-Truth.
Oh, Truth. What was he even doing?
He apparently thought he was protecting Cena.
Oh, bless his heart. R-Truth, you never know what you're going to get.
Right. He runs in, says he's a Cena fan, which, you know, who knows with Truth.
Predictable result.
RKO for Truth. Immediately.
Of course. But that distraction, that was all Cena needed.
Low blow.
Blatant low blow. Then a shot with the championship belt. And who recovers just in time to count the pin?
Let me guess. Chad Patton.
The original ref, Chad Patton, slides in, makes the 3 count. Cena retains.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a cheap finish. Deliberately cheap, obviously.
Had to be right. Designed to get heat on Cena, make him look like a completely opportunistic heel who stole the win. Contrasts with Orton's, more direct RKO everyone approach. Truth just got caught in the middle.
Yeah, poor Truth. Just trying to help.
So after the match, Cena gets the mic, tells him to cut his music.
Ooh, always a sign something intense is coming.
And he just lays it out.
Twisting the knife, tells the St. Louis crowd, Orton's hometown, drink it in, because this is what the last real champion looks like.
Ouch. Just pure heel arrogance right there. Rubbing it in. Doesn't need the WWE universe, just needs competition. He's the last real champion.
Doubling down on the arrogance.
Yeah, and the commentary team. They were split, weren't they?
Very split. Yeah, some were saying, the overbooking, the ref bumps.
Right.
It was maybe too much. The one even said it felt like very early TNA.
Ouch. That's a specific kind of criticism, usually meaning messy and over-reliant on interference.
Exactly. But then others were arguing, no, it worked. It fit Cena's character, it amplified the spectacle, it made it memorable.
It's interesting, that divide. What's your feeling? Too much or just right for the story?
Honestly, I can see both sides. It was a lot. 3 ref bumps is pushing it. But for this story, Cena's first big defense as this new heel, maybe they needed to go over the top to establish how far he'll go.
Okay, fair point.
Right.
Solidifies that potential villain turn.
Though, interestingly, as Cena was leaving, he did look kind of emotional for a second.
Maybe a flicker of the old Cena. Or just the toll of the match. Hard to say. That's the ambiguity, maybe?
Could be.
Okay, so let's pull in Meltzer's takes from the external notes. It starts with Meltzer's rating 3.25 stars.
Okay, not terrible, not amazing.
Right, but then it adds his observation that said the early stuff didn't do much, but the crowd was super invested just in the idea of Cena versus Orton again.
He did have a specific knock on the commentary, though, didn't he?
He felt they basically gave away that the finishing moves weren't actually the finish.
Spoiling the near falls.
Exactly. He's quoted saying it's how they're taught, apparently, but it ruins near falls for viewers paying attention. Call it real bad here. He kind of joked that luckily the live crowd wasn't hearing them.
Which leads to his main point. The crowd. He says even though the match structure was, far too predictable, ref bumps, interference, finisher kickouts again and again.
Despite all that, the crowd was super into it. Had the most reaction of the whole show.
And that's where he uses the term smoke and mirrors. Like, okay, maybe technically or artistically you could call it bad.
Yeah, but, and this is key, he says, wrestling is about what works. And it did work, simply because the live audience was so engaged. The crowd was completely pro-Orton and just super into it.
And then there's that detail from the notes that's just wild. After the show goes off air, the St. Louis crowd, Orton's hometown crowd.
They started chanting, "Thank you, Cena."
Yeah. After he just won by cheating, belt shots, interference, being portrayed as this desperate figure, they chant, "Thank you, Cena."
It completely flips the script on the narrative we just saw play out, doesn't it?
It really does. But the night wasn't over. Post-match press conference.
R-Truth again.
R-Truth interrupts Cena, still trying to be his buddy, saying he knows fans chant Cena sucks, but he supports him.
And Cena was not having it this time.
No. Warned him, Truth kept talking.
Yeah.
So Cena just gave him an attitude adjustment right through the press conference table.
Whoa. Okay, so much for any ambiguity there. That's a pretty definitive statement from Cena. No time for jokes, pure ruthless focus.
Seems like it.
Truth tries to help, gets an RKO, and then gets attacked by Cena after the show.
Exactly. The commentators sounded genuinely shocked when they discussed it. Kicked off all sorts of speculation.
That feels significant, attacking someone off-air like that, especially someone like Truth. What's the takeaway there?
It cements Cena's turn. Hard. No ambiguity. And it immediately sets up a potential feud, right? Cena versus R-Truth. Makes you wonder what Cena's problem is. Beyond just being a heel, it adds another layer of intrigue.
So where does Cena go from here? The rumor mill must be working overtime.
Oh, yeah. Truth is an obvious possibility now. Another Orton match. Always possible.
People still want that CM Punk match, maybe SummerSlam.
That's the dream match for a lot of fans, definitely. The clash of personalities, the history. It writes itself.
And eventually, Cody Rhodes. Has to be Cody, right, to get that title back.
You'd have to think so. That's the end game most people see. Plus, Cena's advertised for Saturday night's main event later this month, so he's sticking around. Lots of paths they could take.
Which one interests you most, if you had to pick one direction?
The Cody match has the biggest stakes, obviously, but that Punk match, the promos alone would be legendary. The Truth story, though, that's immediate heat based on what just happened. It's tough to pick.
And there was talk, too, about this being part of a bigger plan for Cena, right? That this heel run isn't forever.
Yeah, some chatter about this eventually leading back to a babyface turn, maybe for his final run. There was even a report, you know how these things go, maybe hinting his final match could be December 2025 in Boston.
Wow. Hometown farewell.
And finally, wrapping things up, there's already a report from WrestleVotes.
Oh, yeah? What's that?
Potential match brewing for SummerSlam. Randy Orton versus GM Nick Aldis.
Okay, so direct fallout from Orton attacking Aldis and the officials. That makes sense. And that's a pretty interesting matchup, actually.
Definitely adds a whole new storyline stemming directly from the chaos at Backlash. Shows how one night can really shake things up.
Absolutely, the ripple effects. So wrapping this deep dive up, Cena versus Orton at Backlash. It was defined by chaos, ref bumps, and drama spilling over even after the show.
Definitely not a clean, straightforward wrestling match. What hopefully came across to you is that contrast, how some saw spectacle, others saw messy overbooking, and those moments like the press conference attack, those are the things that really fuel discussion. So for you listening, what stood out the most to you? What do you think happens next for Cena? For Orton? Let us know what you think.
We've gathered quite a bit of material, articles, notes, research, covering all the latest buzz in professional wrestling.
That's right.
And it's quite a mix today. We're looking back at Backlash, looking ahead to Saturday night's main event, digging into a roster name change, which is always interesting, and even peeking at some potential big plans for way down the road.
So yeah, consider this your quick way to get caught up on the big talking points, maybe some of the behind-the-scenes thinking too.
Okay, let's dive into that first big piece then. Backlash in St. Louis. Sounds like it made some waves.
It definitely got people talking. Attendance numbers looked really solid, right around that 17,000 mark. WWE said 17,155. WrestleTix was just a hair under that.
Basically a packed house.
Yeah, pretty much.
And the fan reaction, judging by that poll you mentioned, over 2,200 votes, seems really positive. What was it, like 71.7% thumbs up?
Yeah, a big majority. Only about 10% thumbs down, with the rest in the middle. So yeah, overwhelmingly positive feedback from that group.
Interesting. And the show itself, the structure. You mentioned this Triple H formula.
Right. It seems to be the pattern for these non-WrestleMania PLEs. Keep it tight, you know.
Yeah.
5, maybe 6 matches.
Makes sense.
And it does make them feel pretty easy to watch. You don't feel like you're signing up for a marathon.
Okay, let's get into some specific matches that the sources highlighted. Pat McAfee versus Gunther. Sounds like Pat really felt that one.
Oh, absolutely. He was quite open about how grueling it was physically intense.
Yeah.
Yeah, talked about his back, hips, knees, said the chest chops felt like they popped his eardrums.
Wow.
Gives you a real sense of the impact. But what seemed important to him was feeling like he earned Gunther's respect. That nod Gunther gave him afterward apparently meant a lot. And yeah, some sources definitely felt that match over-delivered.
Speaking of over-delivering, the John Cena versus Randy Orton match.
Yeah.
One source called it a potential crapshoot on paper.
Yeah, that was the term used. But apparently it also surprised them in a good way.
Oh, so
Sounds like it was built around those big signature moves, you know? Attitude adjustments, RKOs.
Crowd pleasers.
Exactly. And the St. Louis crowd just ate it up. One person noted that even though it went almost half an hour, it didn't feel that long, which is usually a good sign, right? Means the crowd was into it the whole time.
definitely. And the show had variety, too, like
Yeah.
Becky Lynch versus Lyra Valkyria.
Right. That one was pegged as a very good technical wrestling match, so something for the fans who really appreciate that style.
And the U.S. title Fatal 4-Way even got called maybe the best thing on the show by one source.
It did. But then you had Dominik Mysterio versus Penta. One source found that one pretty forgettable.
Yeah.
But with Dominik, often the main event isn't the match itself, but just seeing how the crowd reacts to him, that's become such a huge part of his whole presentation.
So a real mix then. Sports entertainment spectacle, a grudge match feel, the multi-man chaos, technical wrestling.
Yeah, a bit of everything. They clearly tried to offer different styles on the card.
Okay, let's pivot a bit. How did Backlash do outside the arena? Thinking about those viewership numbers on Netflix internationally, Dave Meltzer had some insights reported, right?
Yeah, and this is where it gets into the business side of things. Pretty interesting stuff.
What did the numbers show?
Well, the key takeaway is that Backlash didn't crack the Netflix top 10 in any of the charted countries outside the U.S., which means basically it had fewer than 1.6 million views in those markets.
Okay. How does that stack up against, say, Raw or SmackDown on Netflix in those same places?
That's where it gets nuanced. Compared to Raw, Backlash actually drew more viewers in the UK, Saudi Arabia, and Mexico.
Oh, interesting.
But it drew fewer viewers than Raw in Australia, New Zealand, India, and Canada. So when you average it all out, the estimate is Backlash probably did similar numbers to Raw internationally on Netflix, maybe around 1.46 million homes.
So similar to a regular Raw episode.
Roughly, yeah. It did beat SmackDown pretty much everywhere they had data for, though.
So even a big PLE like Backlash isn't necessarily pulling in massively more international viewers on Netflix than their weekly flagship show.
According to this data, it seems that way, and this ties into a bigger point Meltzer made, looking ahead to the PLE rights negotiations in 2020 soon. He noted something interesting about the crowd, too. While European crowds often get praised for being loud and chant-heavy,
Yeah, we hear that a lot.
the St. Louis crowd was different. They reacted more to the actual match, the story, the near falls. Meltzer felt that actually made the matches better because the reactions felt more connected to the action.
So great in-arena reaction, but the global Netflix numbers maybe tell a slightly different story about reach.
Exactly. The data suggests that since the Rumble, no WWE PLE outside the U.S. has hit that Netflix top 10 mark. And the implication, especially thinking about Netflix as a potential bidder, is whether these PLEs are really driving new subscribers or if they're mostly watched by people who are already subscribed and probably watching Raw anyway.
So the extra value, the subscriber growth value, might be less than maybe WWE hopes.
That's the question this data raises, according to the sources. Look, Netflix will likely still bid strongly. Being on Netflix offers potentially huge global reach compared to Peacock in the U.S.
Of course.
But these numbers suggest the PLEs themselves might not be the silver bullet for adding new international wrestling fans to Netflix. It definitely adds a wrinkle to those upcoming negotiations.
It really does. It's not just about the show itself, but how it performs across all these platforms and what that means for the business.
It's all connected these days.
Okay, let's shift gears completely now. Away from looking back, let's look at the immediate future.
Yeah.
Saturday night's Main Event 39 is coming up, May 24th, 2025. We've got confirmed matches.
Yep, 4 big ones announced. And the thinking is this will likely be the full card for the 2-hour broadcast.
First up, undisputed WWE Championship. John Cena defending against R-Truth.
Right, and this one has that classic R-Truth flavor, doesn't it? He helped Cena at Backlash.
Right, interfered against Orton.
And then Cena put him through a table afterward.
Of course he did.
And Truth's take is, well, classic Truth. He thinks Cena is motivational, but maybe needs to be beat back to his senses. It's leaning into their unique dynamic.
Definitely unique.
Okay, next. World Heavyweight Championship match. We've got Jey Uso defending against Logan Paul.
Whoa, that's a huge defense for Jey against a massive name like Logan Paul.
Absolutely. Then there's a big tag match, CM Punk and Sami Zayn versus Seth Rollins and Braun Breaker.
That's a star power there.
For sure. And finally, a steel cage match. Damian Priest versus Drew McIntyre.
Ooh, ending things in the cage.
That's exactly how they framed it. Announced specifically to end things between them, saying a regular match wouldn't cut it, positioning it as the big feud finale.
Sounds like a potentially very strong 2-hour show. Now, let's zoom in on a specific roster thing, a name change that got you some attention.
Right. This involves Jeff Cobb, who debuted at Backlash, helping out Solo Sikoa and Jacob Fatu against LA Knight.
And commentary initially just called him Jeff Cobb.
They did during the actual show, but then later on the post-show stuff, they made a point of saying he was once known as Jeff Cobb, kind of signaling, a change was coming.
And we know the new name now.
We do. It's JC Mateo. Confirmed on WWE's social media by the ring announcer. Solo even introduced him as just JC on SmackDown, and commentary has been using that since.
Okay, JC Mateo. But here's the really interesting part, the sort of behind-the-scenes look from Dave Meltzer's reporting. Another name was apparently strongly considered, JC Matanza.
Exactly. And for fans who remember Lucha Underground, Matanza Cueto was Cobb's huge monster character there.
Right, the dominant force.
Totally. So using Matanza would have been a pretty direct nod to that history. A cool little Easter egg for those fans.
So, why didn't they use it if it had that connection?
Well, Meltzer's report laid out a couple of key reasons. One, it seems AAA, who bought the Lucha Underground library, didn't actually own the intellectual property for that specific character name, Matanza.
Ah, legal stuff.
Potentially. And maybe just as importantly, the report says Jeff Cobb himself just didn't like the name.
Oh, okay. Talent preference.
Yeah. So it wasn't just a potential rights issue. The wrestler's own feeling about it seems to have been a big factor in going with JC Mateo instead.
That's fascinating. Shows it's not always just creative throwing darts at a board. There's legality, talent input.
All part of the mix.
Okay, one last thing. Looking even further ahead now. Money in the Bank 2025, set for June 7th in Inglewood, California. There's a rumor, or an idea floating around backstage in creative, about a potential mainstream crossover.
Yeah, this report suggests they're kicking around the idea of involving hip-hop star Travis Scott in a major match at that show.
Travis Scott.
The name being floated as his potential partner is the undisputed WWE champion John Cena.
Cena and Travis Scott. Okay, that's big.
Definitely high profile. The report says they're considering either a standard tag team match or maybe a 6-man tag.
Any word on who they might face?
Opponents aren't locked down in this report, but past discussions about celebrity matches have thrown out names like Bad Bunny, maybe even Cody Rhodes in some capacity.
So this is clearly WWE creative, actively brainstorming ways to get that big mainstream pop for a major event. Kind of ties back to reaching beyond the core fans, right?
Absolutely. Always looking for those moments that might grab headlines and bring in casual viewers or even non-fans. So wrapping up our thoughts on Backlash in St. Louis, we saw some major storylines move forward, especially with that one last time match between Cena and Orton.
Definitely felt like a significant chapter closing, or maybe turning.
We had title defenses, some successful, some maybe setting up rematches, new feuds kicking off, and a pretty massive debut in Jeff Cobb.
Yeah, Cobb's arrival is a big deal. Adds a whole new dynamic, especially around the bloodline and the U.S. title scene.
It definitely feels like Backlash was a crucial event in kind of shaping the direction for WWE post-WrestleMania.
Absolutely. That billing of Cena versus Orton as one last time, given Cena's impending retirement at the end of the year, it carries huge weight.
Makes you wonder, yeah.
It makes you consider what the future of WWE even looks like without him as a regular presence, and how Orton moves forward from this.
And those surprises, like Cobb showing up, the intensity in that women's IC title match finish, it really injected an extra level of excitement, didn't it?
It did. It's that mix, isn't it?
Very
Celebrating the established legends while also clearly building towards the next generation and the next big stories.
So as we finish up this deep dive into Backlash, here's something for you, the listener, to think about. Given this blend, we saw long-standing rivalries maybe reaching an end, new faces arriving, new feuds starting. Where do you think WWE is heading next?
Good question.
What lasting impact do you think Backlash will have on Raw and SmackDown as we move deeper into 2025? It certainly feels like we're on the cusp of some potentially significant shifts in the whole landscape.